Hello, it's almost weekend, and we'll do our last class today. You can see in my font again that I put the steps of the scientific method, and basically today it will be closing this chapter. So today what we will do is I will first start with a little bit of news, let's say, like we did yesterday. Uh, and then we will review a document together to see if you understood everything with some small exercises on it. And then in the end, you can do the small quiz, basically, that you find in Canvas. And if there is still time left, you can finish your great elephant census in case you didn't finish it yet. So the great elephant census is a very nice activity because it's a real project that they're doing. They try to count all the elephants on the African continent to give an idea how many elephants are still there, because they estimate that they kill about 100 elephants every day, and we need to have accurate data in order to tell to governments that they should adapt their policy to the data they have. So that's basically the objective of the Great Elephant Census, which I think it's a very important and nice project. And as you saw the video, it's not a very simple experiment, but it's very important that we do this, because otherwise we risk of losing all wild elephants in nature. So today, sorry, today I start with some news. The news of today, I'm going to share my screen, is what I saw this some days ago in Life Science. There was an article about Greenland, saying that the Greenland ice sheet has passed the tipping point and we are now on a point of no return. So the ice of Greenland is melting, and if all this ice keeps on melting, which is inevitable right now, then we can expect in the coming years sea level rise between 2 and 7 meters. Greenland, as you can see on Google Earth, is the biggest island in the world. Yeah, Australia is bigger, but we don't consider Australia an island because we consider that a continent. It's like a Oceania continent. It's not considered an island. So that's why Greenland is really the biggest island there is. Also, you can see here in Google Earth that Greenland is basically completely white, except for the edges that have been melted already. And it's covered with the second largest source of fresh water in the whole world. This ice sheet that is covering Greenland is between 2 and 3 kilometers thick. That's 2 and 3,000 meters. So as you can see on the edges here, this is melting at a really fast rate, and all this water is ending up in the oceans. This is problematic because what we have here is Atlantic air, which is hot, which goes to Mexico and the Caribbean. It takes a turn and it then goes to Europe. It's called the Gulf Stream. This Gulf Stream is responsible for a lot of the vegetation types and the climate that we have in the world. That's why Canada is way colder than Europe, even if it's on the same altitude, more or less. You know, Europe is very much to the north. If you would take Rome, it's more or less on the same level as New York. And Rome is way more tropical, not, it has Mediterranean climate, but it's hotter than New York. In New York, you have very freezing temperatures. So basically, what this article is saying that the ice cap is melting, and we really have to try to think about what consequences this has for the world. This is news that people don't read, but basically this will affect us way more than coronavirus, economical crisis, or whatever. It's really a worrying thing, and it's remarkable how people ignore this kind of news because they think it will not affect me tomorrow, so why shouldn't I sleep well? I share this with you because it does worry me, because you and I, in our lifetimes, we will see the consequences of what's happening here. We are already seeing it, but it will only become worse. Climates will change, deserts will become green, jungles will become desert, we will have more hurricanes, tropical storms, all these kind of things. So check it. Somebody wants to comment something about this? No, I just share it with you to share knowledge, you know, that you know what's happening in the world. By the way, if you know, I don't know if you know, Greenland is an autonomous region, but basically it used to be part of Denmark, but now it become more or less independent. It's considered a separate country. However, it's still a little bit under control of Denmark. Okay, so I think it's interesting to see, to know this. There's only two ways to go to Greenland. There is flights from Iceland to Greenland, and there is flights from Denmark to Greenland. And then there is some cruise ships that stop in the capital Nuuk, which is right here, to see some glaciers and stuff. But basically, it's quite hard to get there, and it's a very expensive destination. If you want to go here, you have to think to spend, not including the flight. The flight is expensive, but even if you just want to visit, you have to think about $200 to $400 a day in order to be here. I mean, everything is imported, everything is really expensive. I would love to go, but yeah, it's not going to happen soon with because I don't have enough savings yet, I guess. But I would really love to go to Iceland, to Greenland. I think it must be beautiful. So let's continue now with a revision of what we have done the last week. To do this, I have a nice document here. It's a bit theoretical, but it's good that it's theoretical, because then you have a nice summary of everything you did. And then after we do this in about 15-20 minutes, hopefully your little quiz will go better. So let me share this with you. And please participate, please comment and help, okay? So here we go, science. The first thing we have seen is science, okay? What is science and what is not? Important to know, science is an organized way of gathering and analyzing evidence about the natural world, okay? So we do science basically to find solutions for problems we have, and we do science to explain things we don't understand, okay? So provide natural explanations, important point, okay? Why science? Okay, science only deals with the natural world. It collects and organizes information in an orderly world that's doing experiments and gathering data. And it wants to give explanations. This is very important. Think what we said about religion. Think about other conspiracy theories. Important thing about science is that it's based on evidence. In science, you're never going to say, I think that maybe this. No, I believe it is like this. No, never in science. In science, the only truth there exists is based on evidence that is obtained by doing experiments. And that's an important thing, because as we have seen in previous lessons, this is a very good way to come to solutions. And if we compare it with other things that we do in the world, science has given us the best results in medicine, in transportation, in all kinds of things. So science is really something nice for us. Okay. On my background, you can see also, let me stop sharing quickly that you can see it better. You can see here the font. So the font of my background says basically how we do the scientific methods, okay? And a scientific method starts with an observation, okay? An observation can be something that you don't understand. An observation can be something that you want to solve. So it's something you want to know more about. Okay. Based on the observation, you're gonna suggest hypothesis. And here I want to ask somebody who can tell me the difference between observation and hypothesis.
The observation is what you perceive, and the hypothesis is what is kind of like an inference about what it's about.
Okay, very good, Isabella. Exactly. Hypothesis is a statement. It can be in the form of a question. And the other characteristic of a hypothesis is something you can measure. because you need a hypothesis, because based on the hypothesis, you go to an experiment, okay? And basically we do controlled experiments. Remember what I told you yesterday? A controlled experiment is an experiment where you take all variables and you keep them stable and you keep them in control. You remember what I told you about the mosquitoes in Florida? Yeah, so this is what worries me. I'm not absolutely sure if we can call this a complete controlled experiment because there are so many variables. By just letting them loose in the wild, I'm not absolutely sure if we can call that a controlled experiment because it's not, it can go out of control. There is things, there might be outcomes that we cannot predict. So that's why I brought it up yesterday, but it's definitely an experiment. If it's a good experiment, yeah, it's up for discussion. So in a controlled experiment, we have three types of variables, okay? We only see two here. Let's start with the two, and I'm going to change them in pink. I don't know if you like pink, but let's make it pink. We have the independent variable. Always remember, because dependent and independent is sometimes for some people a little bit confusing. So don't never forget to remember also the independent variable is the one you manipulate, okay? It's the one that you make different in the experiment and in the control group, okay? So think about the plant that you give water and the other plant you don't give water, okay? So what are you manipulating is the amount of water you give. This is the independent variable. Then next to that, we have a dependent variable or the responding variable. We also call it the variable we measure, okay? So it's basically the result. And in the plant experiment, this would be how much is the plant growing or how many seeds are hatching or not, okay? And then we get data. And out of those data, which come from the experiments, we get, we can make a conclusion, and then we can, I didn't want to do this, we get a conclusion, and then out of the conclusion, we can say if our hypothesis, we have proof for the hypothesis or not, you know? Okay, so Julieta, what is science? What, if you would answer in your own words, what would you say? What is science?
The study of basically everything, like how everything works and why it works.
Okay, can a little bit more complete because there would not be enough in an exam. Who can help, Julieta?
Well,
It's right here. We just did it.
Science is a way of analyzing and gathering certain information about what you want to know or about what you are curious about. Well, it depends on what you're researching on, but it's basically analyzing data and proving it to be right or wrong.
Okay, I like that a lot. It's a good explanation. So let me copy paste here quickly an answer. It's not really, it doesn't have to be this answer. It's just a possible answer. What the girl said, Anna Sophia, right? Or who said it? Yeah, Anna Sophia.
Yeah.
Anna Sophia said it's perfectly correct. Okay, I would say it. Rafael, what are the goals of science? Here, there can be many goals. You can, when you study something, you don't have to take exactly what's written in the book or whatever. You can always answer in your own words. If it's complete, it's correct. So, Rafael, what would you answer?
To find an answer to something?
Yes, good thing. To explain events in nature, to find answers, explanations, predictions. Okay, somebody wants to contribute something to this?
To find solutions for things with human cause, like, you know, global warming and those stuff.
Yeah, very good. I give here the answer. The goals of science are to investigate and understand nature, to explain events in nature, and to use those explanations to make useful predictions. Could be a complete answer, but there are other possibilities. Now, pay attention. I'm going to give you an example of experiments that have been done. You know, what is very nice about science is that science always tries to improve, you know, it never stops, it's dynamic, and they always admit that they're wrong, and they always try to do better and to do things more in detail. I have a very nice example of this, and this is something that we're going to start with next week. So next week, we're going to have a look at the origin of life and the characteristics of life. One of the theories of the origin of life is the theory of spontaneous generation. To say it's very simple, the theory of spontaneous generation is a theory that still certain people believe. Of course, it's now debunked and we know it's not true, but the theory says that life comes out of nothing, that all of a sudden, poof, life was there, okay? This is what people were thinking, especially about 300-400 years ago. There was a big belief that life came out of nothing, okay? So they did some science about it. Let's have a look at it. So 3, 4, 5 is what we're gonna do, okay? 6, not anymore. And then you can see. So where does this theory comes from? Well, to start with, it comes from evidence, yeah, that people were looking that when you leave food, yeah, for a long time, that all of a sudden there would be maggots or fungal or bacterial growth, okay? That's what they observed. That was the problem, like how many years ago, people know that for a long time already, that if you, we also know that, but if you leave food just on the table and you wait some days or even hours, things happen to the food. You get maggots, you know, maggots, these little worms. You get fungi, like if you have this green fungi, or it can be black as well, or even yellow, and bacterial growth, okay? We all have observed this. But people like 200-300 years ago, they had, or 400 years ago, they had no idea why this happened. Where did the maggots in the food come from? And it's really weird, because first there are no maggots, and then out of nothing, all of a sudden there are little worms in the food. So they were thinking that maybe life could come out of nothing, okay? So if they observe this, what would be a good hypothesis? Who can make a hypothesis of the observation that food was getting spoiled? Okay, what people discovered many years ago already, food gets spoiled. What can be a hypothesis for this in order to set up an experiment?
The microorganisms, like very small, travels and get to the food, and they start reproducing.
Yeah, but take into is good hypothesis, Julieta, but take into account that you see here the date. This has been done in 1668. People had no idea of the existence of bacteria. So you can, I mean, we're gonna make a hypothesis in their time, you know. But it's a good thing. But you
So
know.
could it be?
Sorry. Yes, Ana Sofia, go ahead.
So if life spontaneously appear on fruits or food or whatever you leave on the table, then life must arise from non-living matter. So I think that would be a good hypothesis for this project in those times. So if something living came out of nowhere, then life could arise from something.
Mm-hmm. Very well done, Ana Sofia. Exactly what you say. If an organism appears on rotting food with no visual connection to a parent, it's more or less in different words, then an organism is arising spontaneously from food. So basically saying that, or if organisms, if you see bacterial growth or fungal growth or maggots or whatever, if they appear, then it could be that the food, that they come out of nothing. So this is a good hypothesis, okay? So they did an experiment. How did they do the experiment? I mean, what am I doing here? Okay, so in 1868, we had this Francesco Redi who did an experiment, and what he did is he wanted to start with a different hypothesis, okay? And what he discovered was that he observed that when you close in this case, maggots are the little worms. He noticed that if you leave a piece of meat in a jar and you leave it open, then maggots would appear. But if you leave it closed, then maggots would not appear. That's something that he observed. So he set up an experiment, and this is the experiment, basically what you see here. This is the control group here, the uncovered jars, and the covered jars is the experiment, what he's doing. So if we talk about this experiment, what can we say about the variables? Who can tell me what is the independent or the manipulated variable here?
The covering the lid on the jars.
Yeah, exposure to air, very good. So the fact of putting the jar, leaving the jar open or covering it, that's the independent variable, because this is what you do different in the experiment. What is the dependent variable? What are you going to measure? Vera, Sofia?
The maggots.
The maggots.
The maggots, okay. Very good. So what you're going to measure is, in this situation, you get maggots, and here you don't get maggots, okay? So what conclusion can you get from this experiment, Gustavo? Can you help me?
Yeah, that if you leave, that if you leave meat in the open, it will get, well, let's say, infected maggots. But if you cover the jar with something, for example, a cloth, maggots will not appear.
Yeah, perfect, Gustavo. You're also smart. Everybody's smart. Very good. Maggots only form when flies come in contact with the meat. Therefore, spontaneous generation of maggots does not occur. So basically, it was an important experiment, because this means that spontaneous generation is not true. Because if you leave the jars open, maggots appear. If you close the jar, no maggots appear. So it means that the flies have to do something with the maggots that appear, because the flies, they put their eggs on the meat, and then when the eggs hatch, then the maggots will start eating the meat, okay? Of course, this is just the intermediate experiment, because if you even cover the jar and you wait 1 or 2 weeks, we all know that still the meat is going to get spoiled, right? You still get fungi, you get still bacterial growth, you know, it still rots. Okay, this is just one step. So the explanation from Francisco Redi is a nice one, because he discovered already that flies have to do something with it, but it's not enough. There must be other things as well. Of course, we know these are bacteria, microorganisms that are already present on the meat anyway, that start duplicating and rotting the meat. And therefore, they did another experiment about 30 years later. We had Lazzaro Spallanzani. You don't have to know the names. I also don't know them. And he did a different kind of experiment, because when they left the meat covered in the jar here, they saw that the meat still got spoiled. So Spallanzani, he knew already that when you cook the food, that usually it preserves better. You all know that, okay? So he set up an experiment, very simple. He have meat broth, which is caldito de carne, básicamente. They cook the meat in water in both situations, okay? And then here, after cooking, they leave the flask open. And in the other situation, they close the flask, okay? Very simple. Okay. So in this experiment, what would be the independent variable? Again, independent one.
Last.
Luna,
Exposure to air.
Covered or not.
thanks for your participation. I heard it already. It's correct. So the independent one, the one that you're going to manipulate, is the exposure to air. Yeah. So one caldito is exposed to air. The other caldito is not exposed to air. Okay. So what happens in the end? One flask, you get microorganisms in the caldito. I call it caldito, but here they say broth, but basically it's caldito, no? And then in the sealed flask, you didn't get, you do get after a while, because we have anaerobic bacteria, but they last longer in order to develop. But in the sealed flask, the microorganism growth would take a lot longer. So what is the dependent variable here?
The microorganisms.
Exactly. not the microorganisms, the growth of microorganisms, okay? Yeah, very good. And then so I can write it quickly, independent exposure to air, or you can say sealed or not sealed, okay?
March. Last week.
The dependent variable is here, of course, it's what we're gonna see, it's what we're gonna measure, it's microorganism growth. And this last thing is very important, guys, because I want to focus you on what are the controlled variables. We haven't talked that much about it, but in this experiment, you can interrupt Ana Pao. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say the controlled variables.
Okay, go ahead. The controlled variables is what's the same in both experiments, okay? So there's
Well,
the same.
that they boiled it.
Okay, yes, yeah, it boiled for the same.
That they used a flask.
Very good. Same type of flask. I don't think it has anything to do if it's round or square, but same type of flask. In an experiment, you should always use the same type of flask. Okay, what else is the same?
And the time it spent, like, for it to broth.
Yeah, the time in to measure, yeah. Also, time to measure data. What else is the same?
Maybe it can be like that it's the same caldito, like the same ingredients that
Yes, of
it's
course,
meat.
it's, yeah, very important. You cannot take meat from two different cows or two different chicken. It has to be the same meat, okay? And it has to be the same amount even, okay? Same weight. What else? There's a lot that is way more than 3.
The same amount of caldito?
Yes, same amount of water for sure. Same amount of
No.
water. And we go ahead at same temperature. Just put it like this.
Same
Maybe
type
the
of
same
air
place.
exposure.
Maybe the same location.
Okay.
Like they cannot leave one in one place and then the other one in a completely
Very
different
good, Ana
place.
Sofia. You cannot put one in the sun and the other in the shadow, for instance, when you're going to do it. Because of course, if you put it in the sun, it could create more or less bacterial growth depending on the amount of sunlight. I think you get it. Very good. The controlled variables is the things that you should keep the same in both things. Because if you don't, it could be due to the difference in both experiments that you have a difference in your results. So you have to be very careful with that. Okay, guys, that's basically what I wanted to explain before you do the test. The test, you can find it in Canvas. You want me to show you? I'll show you, maybe easier. Where do I have it? Wait a second, please. So there we go. It's a very short test. It only has 5 questions, but it helps you a lot to make sure to know for yourself if you understand or not. So you go to modules, then you go to module 1, we already did. You go to partial 1, how does biodiversity originate and study? We're in week 2, and you take here the review questionnaire, and you can answer this, okay? So you can do this. You have to do that right now. And after this, I'm not going to start with a new subject today. The time that is left, the remaining time, you can use it to finish the activity of the Great Elephant Census. In case you have already done it, I wish you a very happy weekend and you can disconnect. Okay?
Thank you, teacher.
You're welcome. So the quiz, you have to do it right now. Eh? It's only 5 questions. It will take you like, I don't know, maybe 5-10 minutes. And then I'll stay here for a while in case you have questions about the Great Elephant Census. If you need some help, I'm here to assist in whatever you need. So first do the quiz, please.
If we finish, we can go, right?
If you don't want, if you don't have any questions anymore about the great elephant census or something, yeah, you're free to go. But maybe
Thank you.
I want to present you my daughter. She's always near when I teach because she likes biology a lot, and she's 6 years old, and yeah, just that you know her.
Hi.
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 Hey.
Bye, teacher. Thank you.
Bye, Isabella. Have a nice weekend. You're very welcome.
You too.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, Julieta.
Bye, teacher. Thanks.
Bye, dear.
Teacher,
Yes.
I have a question about the book.
Book. Yes. Go ahead.
I already borrow it, but I couldn't open it because it said I didn't have a license.
Look, I think yeah, I explained last lesson what happened. So tech, for instance, I don't know the amount, but let's say for whole first semester it has like 80 licenses. Just to say a number, I don't know how many there are exactly, but those licenses can be taken by any student. So that's when you go in, you borrow the book for 4 hours, and then you give it back. And then when you give it back, another student can use the license. So basically, when you cannot go in, it means that other students are also in there, and you have to wait a little bit until it's available. It's like a library in real. The book is lent out, basically. So if you try later again, normally it should be possible to access this. If you have any questions or doubts how to do it exactly, because for me it's also new, I gladly pass the contact of Merari. She's in charge of the library and now also the virtual library, and she can explain you more in detail how it works. But that's what I understood, that we have a certain amount of licenses, but if between bicultural and multicultural, but if the students they use the book, then and they're all taken, then you cannot go in it anymore, and you have to wait until somebody expires the 4 hours so that you can get it. That's why I think it's a good idea that whenever you have the possibility to borrow a book, because it's nice, you don't have to pay for it, that you use a kind of tool on your laptop to take screenshots. Look, I show you this. This is, for instance, your grades. It doesn't matter which website I go, but I have a tool which is called Lightshot. And what I really like about it is, like you can see, I can make a selection of what I want to save, and I save it. I can even make certain notes on it if I want, and you save it on your computer, and then you keep on saving the most important parts of your book. It's just a recommendation of what I do, because I think it's a lot of hassle to go all the time in the book. It already takes 3 minutes to get there. And sometimes I just need a certain part, and then I save it in PDF, and I make a little file on my computer, and then I have easy access for myself. So whenever you have access to the book, it's a good idea to do this, but you are free to do it however you want. Yeah.
And I also have a question about the elephants.
Okay, go ahead.
I didn't find a concrete conclusion in the video, so should I make my own?
Good point, Gretel, because if you watch carefully the video, indeed the results, the thing is that it's a video about an experiment that is not finished. So basically they're still counting. I mean, I don't know of when the video is, but in the video, they don't tell us the results. So basically you can comment it like this. You say like the experiment is still going. We don't have the clear results yet. Maybe I should look if they finished already counting and the results were.
I investigated and I found a page called The Great Elephant Census, where it tells like the amount of elephants found, like the final data collected of the experiment.
Yeah, but very nice, El, that you did this. Possibly there is already partial results, but anyway, the activity is about the video, okay? I'm not asking you to find other sources. So you in your activity, you can just write that in the video there is no results given yet, okay? It's not that complicated. I'm not asking you to check in Google or find other literature to see what the results are of this experiment. It's just that you watch the video, answer the questions, and that's it. You don't have to find external sources for this. Okay, so go ahead and write it like that, at the making of the video, the results were not 100% ready. Therefore, they were not shared in the file. So we don't know basically how many elephants there are.
Okay, then see you Wednesday. Thank you.
Okay, bye, Gretel. Have a nice weekend.
Bye.
Bye, teacher. Thank you.
Bye, Itzel. Take care.
Bye.
Adios,
Bye,
guys.
bye.
I stay with Javier and Cecilia. Oh no, Javier is gone. Cecilia, you have any question?